Good afternoon, my fellow league mates. I hope everyone is having a happy Friday. I decided that now would be a good time to release the first edition of this year's power rankings. And instead of writing an article, which can sometimes be tedious, I figured, let's just do a video, and that'll be a lot easier on me. And you guys can see my beautiful face, which most of you don't get to see enough of, so you're welcome. I'm sporting my I Am Knuff sweatshirt right now. If you haven't seen the Barbie movie, you really gotta do it. It's absolutely hilarious. Couldn't support it anymore. Okay, anyway, into the power rankings. Number 10, leading us off, is going to be Cumanin Cider, which is Brian. He actually is 2-2 this year, but has an absolute stranglehold on the worst points against so far. And most of it is a result of his first couple of picks. Nick Chubb and Cooper Kupp in the first two rounds is a pretty brutal way to start the season. He is getting Kupp back, which should help. But losing Chubb, losing your first round pick, I mean, that's it's pretty tough to recover from. So it's going to be hard to see this team making some noise, even with the addition of Kupp. I'm surprised not to see a bid on Jerome Ford. He did end up having a tall price, but definitely thought for a Chubb owner, you would have thought with the free agent money you'd go all in there, but didn't do it. Does get Cooper Kupp back. Still has Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, James Conner, so decent at the running back position, but pretty weak at receiver outside of getting Kupp back, and really would need a 2021 sort of Kupp performance, Triple Crown winner to get this team going. But for now, number 10. And things are looking a little bleak, but with the 2-2 record, definitely still alive for playoffs. Number 9, we are going to go to PDX Sparked and Wrecked, Eric Fucci. For those who don't know, and I gotta say, I just don't love this roster. Eckler being out hurts. For sure, these first few weeks as PDX is at a 1-3 record. But man, the Garrett Wilson losing Rodgers. Now you got a bum throwing him passes. Drake London has a bum throwing him passes. Kirk has been a bright spot. The running backs are okay with Henry, Robinson. And then the addition of Eckler back will give him a chance, but I'm not in love with this roster. If there's two teams I'm pretty confident in saying won't make the playoffs, it is these first two, unfortunately. Now, I hope you guys can prove me wrong, but really just not in love with these two rosters. I see them struggling for the rest of the season, but we'll see. That's why they play the game. Saving grace could be, if Lamar Jackson had like an MVP season, this roster could get back on track, or if, the Jets offense turned up a touch and Garrett Wilson can be an actual wide receiver one, that would help. It's hard to see those things happening. So number 9, Mr. Fucci, season's already over, buddy. So start planning for next year. Whatever the script was, whatever the studying, the game planning was for this season, it didn't work. You failed. It's week 5. Start again. Okay. Number 7, we're going to get into the only winless team. Debated putting them 10th because they are the only team without a win. But I looked over the roster and kind of like what I saw, and I do expect them to turn it around a bit. It's going to be OnlyFants, which is Chad Tucker, the man, the legend. 9th in points against, so struggling so far. The only team they're outscoring is the team without Nick Chubb and Cooper Kupp, their first 2-round picks, so that's pretty bad. But there is some reason for optimism. Bijan Robinson had a slow start, but is now looking like a potential top 5 player, and that would be huge. You pair that with CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Smith, and you've got a real top 3. David Montgomery is also looking like a really solid pick. A bummer for Chad, though. He sits David Montgomery for lesser players, to say the least, last week. Jordan Addison dropping a goose egg being one of them, and it cost him a win. So that hurts his soul, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to dig in there, because that's what I do. So way to cost yourself a win, Chad. You are still 0-4, but I do like your roster. He also has DK Metcalf to pair with CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Smith. That might be the best 3 wide receivers in the league. There's really only one other team that can rival that. As long as DeAndre Swift is healthy to pair with Bijan, this is, pretty good roster. Now, 0-4 is a serious hole. In fantasy, no matter what your roster is, you can still take some L's. So kind of need to, get 2 of the next 3 wins to really get a chance this season, but really solid roster and a team that could rise the power rankings. If they can sort of get their shit together, just so far it hasn't really happened. And he's playing me this week, so that's probably going to be a win for him. I probably just sort of jinxed myself by putting him at number 8. But hopefully I can just send you a 0-5, Chad, and give you a real nice welcome back to the league. It would be just nice for you to have that great roster over there, 0-5, almost out of playoffs already. That would hurt. So hopefully I can make that happen for you. Okay. So number 6, we're going to go with the defending champion, Dylan Andrew Widener. A 2-2 start this season, so pretty solid, or average, whatever. Led by Justin Jefferson, who's probably the best player in fantasy, him or McCaffrey. So that always helps. Pretty good at receiver, pairing with Pittman, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk. Fields looks like he's turned it around at quarterback, so that's solid. But boy, running back is really weak here. Najee Harris and Miles Sanders being the 2 guys, and really not a lot of backup plans behind it. So that is a pretty big weakness. I definitely like, Chad's roster over this team. That's for sure. But with the 0-4 record versus 2-2 record, I'd probably give Dylan a slight edge to make the playoffs simply because of those 2 wins. But you never really know. This roster is going to have a tough time unless Fields has a top 5 QB sort of year. You're going to need 25-ish from your QB every week and 25 from Jefferson every week to really supplement the weakness at running back. Tough for me to see Najee Harris turning it around and being an RB1. He's an RB2 at best and really more of an RB3 right now. And Sanders, if he can stay healthy, is like an RB2. So we're just really weak at the running back position. Did suffer a really close loss week 1. So that kind of hurts. Could have been 3-1 and given himself a chance to sort of build towards the end of the year. However, didn't work out that way, and gonna be tough. Gonna be tough to keep this one forward. But that's your number 17. Did I say 6? That's number 7. So that's my bad. Coming in at number 6 is the number 2 ranked team right now, at least by Yahoo's metrics, but not by mine. Number 6 is going to be Brendan's team. And if you guessed who the most boring person is in this group chat, yes, it would be the only team that hasn't changed their team name and is still Brendan's team. So yeah, lots of lack for creativity in that management group. But they do have Christian McCaffrey, which so far has turned out to really be the most valuable player in the draft, the MVP, and he's really carrying Brendan here. The receiver position is pretty weak. Ridley, Judy, Waddle, it's all right. It's okay, but there's not a lot of, super big upside unless maybe Waddle can get it together. Ridley, maybe. Pickens is there, so he's solid. The running back 2 position is okay with Pierce and Steven. There's not a lot of sexy in this group, but it's a pretty solid roster. Definitely a playoff favorite. with the 3-1 start, and just, having McCaffrey is just so valuable. But really doesn't look like he's nailed a lot of picks outside of McCaffrey, so his team could struggle down the stretch. But there's some reason for optimism on the bench, and a couple of these guys might turn it around. So, yeah, Brennan coming in at number 6 seems about right, led by McCaffrey, but not a whole lot else behind it. So yeah, number 5 is going to be just here so I don't get fined. I'm the only person that knows this guy, Mitchell. For those of you that don't, a Michigan friend of mine, and he has had the most fun season, the most exciting to watch season, I would say, out of all of the teams. So first week, he has a barn burner with Cumanin Cider, Brian. And he's up in that overtime game of Jets-Bills by a point or two. And Brian is starting the Jets defense against the Bills, which is a bold choice. But he rolls with it, and on the last play of the game, in overtime, they return the touchdown and give Mitchell his first loss and Brian his first win. That's probably the most epic game so far. Well, probably the second most epic game so far. The most epic game also involved Mitchell, which we will get to in a second. But that was a tough loss for him. Outside of that, there's some really good players on this roster. I mean, when you got Saquon, Etienne, and Travis Kelce as your top 3, that's pretty solid. I also tend to think Zay Flowers will have a nice year. And Laporta has been really good as well. Pacheco's solid. So just an overall solid roster, a lot like Brendan's. But the top 3 I like a little bit more. So Mitchell also participated in a game where both teams score 180 points. The other one was me. Comes down to Jamar Chase versus Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase chasing 17 points behind Joe Burrow. Okay? He makes it up. Jamar Chase goes off. 12 catches, 100 and whatever yards. Burrow does nothing, only scores 9. Chase scores 30 or whatever it was. Miraculous comeback by me on Monday night. I was sitting there pumped, texting Kirk about it. We were having a grand old time. I mean, I gave myself no chance heading into that game, but Jamar Chase does the unthinkable and just completely buries Burrow that night. Gives me the win. Pretty pumped. But the story doesn't end there. 2 days later, there is a stat correction for the Jaguars defense, which my dumbass started. And they go from -1 to -4, giving me -3 points and reversing the loss. The first time that has happened to me, I believe, in my fantasy career. The toughest beat for sure. I got to tell you guys, my first instinct when this happened to me was just pure high school Cody. I wanted to just go in the settings and change all the scoring around, because I just felt so cheated. This is complete bullshit. I literally had a win. I was there in the standings, up to 3-0. I check back a day or two later, and the win is just completely gone. So that one hurt. I ended up losing that one by less than a point. So the favor was returned for Mitchell, who has just had some fun on Monday nights between the Jets-Bills game coming down to the final punt return, to Jamar Chase catching a last ball, to give me the win in the fourth quarter. Very tight, incredible win. But wait, a couple days later, it gets reversed and taken away and then give it back. So Mitchell has had, without a question, the most tumultuous season. He's coming in at number 5. Hope he loses, because it feels like he owes me one. But yeah, end of the day, Mitchell's going to be number 5. Coming in at number 4 is going to be the team that he beat. And it's going to be Gibbs and Gravy. That's going to be my team, which I obviously have a bit of a natural bias to, but I do think there's a lot to like with this team. I'm pretty excited about it with Chase, Olave, and Keenan Allen. I think I have probably the best 3-stack receiver, only rivaled by Chad in the league, who might beat me out by a touch. But either way, I really love all 3 of those receivers, all top 15 guys from me. And then you got Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, Jerome Ford, and Jahmyr Gibbs as my running backs. I feel pretty confident with that group. I love Anthony Richardson. I think as long as he's healthy, he's going to give me a lot. Hoping Waller gets it together. And then, guys like Jamison Williams, Jackson Smith, and Jigba Michael Wilson, 3 of the, Jalen Hyatt, even 4 of the more talented rookies. And you really hope 1 or 2 of those guys steps up as the season goes on. So I'm feeling pretty confident with my roster. Unfortunately, the 2-2 record, I really couldn't go any higher than 4 for myself, although I'd love to. And I'm sure teams like Brendan and Mitchell are sitting here like, how is he ahead of me? Well, it's because it's my power rankings and I like my team better than yours. And frankly, I think most people would take my rosters over both of yours. So sorry, not sorry about that. Boy, that loss really hurt me. Could be 3-1 right now. Should be 3-1 right now. I've played my last 2 weeks. I got 180 dropped on me and 212 dropped on me. So clearly I got to pick up the defense. But still feeling really confident about this roster. I think I'm a shoo-in for the playoffs and one of the true contenders. I think these next 4 teams are all, if the playoffs sort of started today, the true contenders, the teams that really I'd expect to come home with a championship, not giving much chance to the other teams. And number 3 is going to be not Cody, who just beat Cody last week. Things started a little shaky for this team as it is very reliant on the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown connection. But the last 2 weeks, that has gotten going in a big way. Last week specifically, I played A.J. Brown in 3 of my 4 leagues. So that was awesome. But with Brown, Puka, and DJ Moore, who is now looking like a much better pick after looking like a really shit pick the first 2 weeks, I imagine he'll be more up and down. And Puka will fall off a little bit with Cooper Kupp, but that's still a really strong receiving core. You got Tony Pollard and James Cook, really great running backs. Obviously, the aforementioned Hurts. And then he gets Kyron Williams as well. Bench could be a bit of an issue here, but as far as starting lineups go, I mean, it's an incredibly balanced roster. I'd say along with very similar roster to Cody, where just sort of to me, very balanced throughout, in a roster that has definitely potential to go all the way. So number 3 is going to be not Cody, aka Corey Todd. Number 2, we're going to go with Alistair. We're going to show him some love. He's had, I believe, one of the best points for on the year, coming in at number 2. So I am going to honor that. The top 3 of Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Patrick Mahomes might be the best in the league, at least so far. Tyreek just looks like an animal as long as Tua is healthy. Amon-Ra, incredible PPR player, and Mahomes is Mahomes. He was looking really weak at running back, but it just so happens that he got Devon Achane, which is going to really help him out to pair with Joe Mixon. Depth is a bit of an issue here, and of the top 4 teams, I would expect, if there was one I would expect to fall out of the top 4, in this next month or so, it'd probably be this one because of that lack of depth. Amon-Ra is also a little bit banged up. But we'll see. Overall, it's looking like a pretty good draft for Manu, and I hope you can prove me wrong and sort of stay in this top 4 hunt. But right now, second most points for, great start to the season. And as long as this team stays healthy, the sort of Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane stack is going to be pretty elite. And then you pair that with Amon-Ra and Pat. It's pretty darn good. Okay, and then the number 1 team sort of by a landslide so far. There's definitely a gap in his production and the rest of the teams in this league's production. That's going to be Allen times Diggs 2024. I don't know if that's how you want me to pronounce your name. But it is Kirky, one of the best receivers in Cloud9 history, Cloud9 leader in touchdowns, flag football legend, and a fantasy football legend as well, as he has a 4-0 squad with 704 total points, absolutely pacing us, blowing us all out of the water. He's had back-to-back 214 point scoring weeks, which is pretty incredible to score exactly 214 the past 2 weeks. I don't know if I've seen back-to-back 200-point performances in my time. The Diggs, Adams, Nico Collins looking like really elite wide receivers. Mostert, as long as he's in there, although he's taken a step back, is a solid running back. And then you got Breece Hall and Alvin Kamara. So, running back is solid, not great. But when you have Josh Allen and those receivers and the sort of upside that Breece Hall and Kamara are going to present, he also has Alexander Madison. Not a big fan of Scary Terry personally myself, and the bench isn't anything I'm in love with, but right now you got to give credit where credit is due, and the fact of the matter is Kirk has been the most dominant team through the first 4 weeks of the season, and there's not a close second. And as long as he can keep that up, he's going to find himself with a week one playoff bye, and look to make another deep run in the playoffs, which Kirk has consistently done in this league. So that's going to do it. Your top 10 rankings. Once again, that's going to be 10. Going to be Brian with a real shaky start of the Cup Chubb draft picks. He is 2-2, but the worst points against by a long shot, almost being outscored by 300 points by Kirk. Number 10, Cumanin Cider. Number 9 is going to be PDX Sparked and Wrecked, Eric Fucci. He has the worst roster. It sucks. Number 8 is going to be OnlyFants, the only winless team. Looking to get the first one this week, though. Really solid roster. I really like this roster, so we're going to see if we can get it going. We slipped to 0-5, and the season's very much on the brink. Number 7, Dylan Andrew Widener, who has really good receivers, but is pretty terrible at running back. Number 6 is Brendan's team being carried by the best, most valuable player in fantasy, and Christian McCaffrey, but a lot of average behind that. Number 5 is going to be Just Here So I Don't Get Fined, who has a really solid top 3. And has had the most dramatic games just to open a season that I've ever seen. Mitchell August. Number 4 is going to be Gibbs and Gravy with a really solid, balanced roster, both with talent now and a ton of upside later. Number 3 is going to be not Cody, who is similarly balanced, but with a little more talent now, a little less later, probably slightly better than Cody. And as long as A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts can get it going, this is going to be a really tough outcome. Playoff time. Number 2, Amon-us, a.k.a. Manu. Really great start. Had a heartbreaking loss in, I think it was week 3, where he put up 180 and lost to like a 200-point score. So he's had a really brilliant start. Second in points against. Great top 3. The Devon Achane thing is probably going to define his season. Like, if he can consistently be an RB1, this team is going to make the playoffs and potentially have a deep run. If any of those top guys of his get injured, it's going to be tough because I don't love the depth here. And number 1, pacing the crowd by far, is going to be Kirky, a.k.a. Allen times Diggs 2024, who is just completely outscoring everyone, back-to-back 212-point weeks, and really has a great starting roster. And that's going to do it. I hope everyone has a great weekend. I wish you all luck in fantasy, except for Chad. I hope you lose, Chad. In all your other leagues, I hope you win. But against me, I hope you lose. Miss all of you dearly. And hope I get to see you soon.